And Marie Torre, member of our own AM New York family, our investigative reporter, has come back with a rare and exclusive interview with the Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen, one of the great legends. Even in our lifetime, he's become
yes. And you know, it's difficult, Clay, to imagine a religious figure such as Archbishop Sheen in doing a weekly television series in prime time opposite a popular comedian and holding his own. But Bishop Sheen did it in the 50s. And the program was called Life is Worth Living.
Now, once again, Bishop Sheen.
Our subject next week will be, do professional careers harden women? Bye now, and thanks, and God love you.
It was amazing. He was on opposite Mr. Television, Milton Berle, on the Dumont Television Network.
And there were quite a few who preferred him to Milton Berle.
It was an amazing career. He's an amazing man, isn't he?
Yes, he is. So many of the stories came back about him that I just loved. One was, for example, the number of converts he has made. There are quite a number of them. Claire Booth Luce, Henry Ford II, Fritz Chrysler, Louis Boudin, who was editor of the Daily Worker.
Is that right?
Yeah. And someone said to him, well, you know, how do you do this? How does a priest do this? And he said, no priest converts. He said the priest is merely the instrument that tills the soil of the soul, which is beautiful.
He does have a way with words.
Yeah, and then there was another one, too. When he got an award, someone said to him, well, you know, make a little speech, and he said, well, it's customary to thank your writers. He said, I'd like to thank my writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yes, yes.
But anyway, at 84, Clay has not lost any of his magnetism, as you'll see with more of our interview.
84-year-old Archbishop Sheen in a rare interview.
Somewhere in my research on you, I came across a quote from you from, 4 years ago, more than that, in which you said that you prayed that you dropped dead before you were 80 because you probably could not work at full schedule. Thank God your prayers were not answered. But now that you're 84, you're going to try for 90?
No. No, please God, I don't want to live that long. The reason I prayed to die at 80 was because I felt that my usefulness would be finished. But it isn't. And so I'm happy to work, and I'm happy to go to heaven, and when I get there, I'll ask the good Lord to send me back after a few days of happiness there to come down and do some more work here.
What is it you're doing now?
I'm writing my own autobiography. It is called Clay. That is to say, the clay refers to me. The treasure in clay is the vocation.
Mm-hmm. Bishop Sheen, do you foresee in the distant future any change in the Church's stand, the Catholic Church's stand, and certain issues today which have been quite controversial? Certainly abortion has been. Do you foresee ever any change in that?
No.
Not at all?
No, because we have no power over the divine law. Furthermore, suppose we did. Suppose John Paul II tomorrow said, all right, bring out your contraceptives. Pull out your scalpels. Unplug the children from their wombs. Marry as you please. Unmarry as you please. Fornicate as you please. What would be the difference between the church and the world?
But meanwhile, Bishop Sheen, you do have many women who have had abortions, who go to church.
Yes, there's no reason why they shouldn't go to church and pray the good Lord will forgive them. That's good. I'm glad they do.
You mean better that if they're going to have an abortion that they still go to church than not at all?
Yes, exactly.
How do you see children and being able to teach human values to children? How do you teach them right from wrong when they see otherwise around them?
First of all, children have within themselves a built-in comprehension of right and wrong. In the beginning of their lives, everything is baby hurt. After a while, they distinguish between the fire and themselves. And it isn't wrong until they distinguish between things that the parents approve and things that they do not. This idea of saying, leave the children be free, let them grow up to do whatever they want, then they will decide. Why do we have pot training?
So what you're saying is that we've been too permissive.
Yes. Hoping that the children will like us, and they don't. That's the penalty of being permissive. There is nothing that helps develop character of a child as much as a pat on the back, provided it is given hard enough, low enough, and often enough.
Is this how you were raised?
I had one spanking, only one in my life. We had a horse, and I was a boy, Morgan. We kept in the barn back of our home in Peoria. And I was to feed the horse every noon. And I would go out and cut off some of the hay that was in a bale and feed it down the chute to Morgan. And my father came home this noon and said, "Did you feed the horse?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I was just out there. There wasn't any hay in the bin." And I said, "Well, I fed the horse." And evidently Morgan was hungry that day and ate it all. So he gave me a spanking for lying. My mother said to my father, "No, he fed the horse. I saw him." Well, my father said, "Well, that spanking will do for the next time." But I never received another.
Marie, that was wonderful.
Thank you very much.
84 years old.
84, and by the way, he is going to give the homily at the Christmas Midnight Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral this year.
Oh, that's what. So he's still active.
So, oh yes, oh yes.
Does he still write?
Oh yes, he's doing his autobiography and doing other writings too, and meditating a good deal in this chapel in his apartment.
Well, if you're in your apartment in New York, Archbishop Sheen, and you're watching our show, thank you, thank you, thank you, and God love you. We'll be back with more. Good job, Marie.
Thank you.
Our AM New York investigative reporter, Marie Torre, was able to get the first interview with the Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen. First he granted in 15 years.
Well, he does not grant interviews when you ordinarily request them nowadays, except when there's a friend involved. And in my case, it happened to be a nurse named Kathy Yetman who knows Archbishop Sheen quite well.
But see, every good investigative reporter needs a source.
That's
You
right,
got your
that's
source.
right. Anyway, the thing that impressed me so much, Clay, is that his manner of speaking. Especially today, our speaking pattern is so full of and so forth. And here, this man is a master when it comes to speaking. And with all this, he has retained an endearing humility. You know, he is such an incredible person that in his presence, you really feel in awe. You really do.
Where did you conduct the interview?
It was in his East Side apartment. It's a modest apartment. There is a chapel. He spends a good deal of time in this chapel, meditating, thinking more of the future than of the past, really. He writes. He's writing his autobiography. This is Bishop Sheen as a young priest. But I say, doesn't dwell in the past.
Handsome young man.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about the family, Bishop Sheen, are you distressed by the fact that in many cases you have men and women living together without marriage?
Yes, and principally because it is the destruction of love. Unfortunately, in English, we have only one word for love. So we have to say, I love pickles, I love the New York Mets, I love God. The Greeks had 3 words for it. And 2 of them that were important were eros, which was friendship love, when Freud made the erotic, or sex. Then there's the agape, sacrificial love. Now when you're speaking of the family and these new customs that have sprung up, we have only eros, the erotic love. We have a love in which the ego projects itself into another and says, I love you, when all that is loved is the pleasure that is found in the other person. And this kind of love is the destruction of the family and the destruction of the human person. As a matter of fact, I believe one of the reasons why we have so much neurosis and psychosis is this tremendous affirmation of the self I got to do my thing. I have to have my pleasure. You bend yourself to my will. When real love does not mean to have and to own and to possess. It means to be had, to be owned, to be possessed. The ancients were right in giving Cupid an arrow, something that wounds, something that sacrifices self for another. Do these people ever show love, for example, for their neighbor and for the downtrodden? No, it is generally for the satisfaction of self. So this kind of life is producing neurotics and psychotics in our civilization.
You mean more so than ever?
More so than ever, yes. People today are without goals and without purposes. That is one of the reasons why our civilization is erotic. We try to make the intensity of a sex experience atone for a want of a purpose in life. Just as when we're lost in an automobile, we drive faster.
Take your average woman in mid-30s, say, who is a mother, a wife. She's bored, she's restless. You say that she is likely or would regard a sexual experience as something that might fulfill her?
One, I would say nothing about that particular woman, but she has something that can give her a passion. That's the raising of children. Believe me, she's got some arrows that she has to shoot. And she'll be held responsible whether or not those arrows ever hit the mark.
Well, what can you say to that woman, though, to make her aware of this, what you're saying about raising those children? Because the tendency is to say, oh, I can't wait to get out of the house, away from children. I'm so tired of children underfoot.
All right. What do you say to anybody, not just that woman? What do you say to anybody?
Yeah.
What do you want? Why are you bored? You want three things. If you could take your heart out as a kind of crucible and distill out of it its inmost cravings, what would they be? One, you want life. Not for 5 more minutes. Not for 5 more years. What else do you want? You want truth. Not just what you read in the paper. Truths of geography, literature, science, everything. We hate to have secrets kept from us. Thirdly, what do you want? Love. And a love without satiety. A love without fed-upness. A love that is constant. That's what you want. Now, do you find them here? Do you find life here? No. Why? Because life is mingled with its shadow death. We get old. Truth, that's mingled with the shadow error. Love, that is mingled with the shadow hate and satiety. So here we are in this rat race. Something we want, something we can't find. What's the answer? Are we to say life is a mockery? Or are we to say, as we might in this room, what's the source of light? Not under the chair, there's light is mingled with shadow. Not behind the bookcases, there light is mingled with darkness. We would say as logical beings, well, source of light, I have to go out to something that's pure light. So, if you want a life, and a truth and a love, a life that is not mingled with the shadow death, and a truth that is not mingled with the shadow error, and a love that is not mingled with the shadow hate, you want pure life, pure truth, pure love. That's what you want. That's only a definition of God. And when you want that, you have everything, and then everything fits in place.
Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen. We're going to continue this interview tomorrow with the Archbishop.
Yes, he'll be talking about how to instill values into children, and also about abortion, the church's stand on abortion, which he says will never really change.
Thank you, Marie Toy, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to return with Frederick Davis, finally on the couch. He's checked out the charts on both Senator Kennedy and President Carter. We're going to analyze and find out who he predicts will win the election in 1980.